Hello. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. If you've joined us again following the fireside chat this morning, if you've just joined us for the first time, welcome also as well. This is webinar number 1, customer engagement, how to thrive in the always-on digital customer era, from the Retail Bulletin. It's colder today, a bit wet outside, so perfect day to be joining us for a stack of webinars that's taking place today. We've got a total of 5 happening, so if you join us for all of them, you get a badge at the end, so see whether you can make it. Got a brilliant panel for the next hour. Joining me today, a reminder, if you've just joined us, my name's Darren. I'll be the moderator for the event. For my sins, my daycare job is exec chairman of men's skincare brand Scrubbed, and Williams Harding Consulting, which is 4 years old now already. Time flies when you're having fun. I have got a team of megastars working with me today, and the voices that you'll be hearing the most, hopefully, is from them. So I'm going to ask you to ask them to introduce themselves just now, and then we can crack on with the session proper. Hello, team. Thank you for joining me.
Hello.
I'm going to start with you, Anouk, if I may. Anouk, thank you for being a late entry onto this panel. A couple of guest changes, so really appreciate you giving up your time at late notice. Tell us who you are and where you're from.
Thanks, Darren. So my name is Anouk. I'm the head of digital and marketing for Europe at M Global. We are the largest global manufacturer of anything to do with vehicle aftermarket and OEM technology. So it doesn't really matter whether you're driving for work or for leisure. We create technology that goes inside your vehicle. I'm responsible for the entire digital part of our business, as well as all of the D2C and all of the B2B offline stuff, basically. Been doing this for about 14 years for different retail brands and agencies. So most of my time is spent on programmatic marketing and strategy.
Welcome. And I know we've worked on a panel together before, so it's great to see you again. Welcome back.
Lovely to see you again.
Farouk, hello, how are you doing?
Was that to me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Farouk. So I actually head up sales for our intelligent self-service division at Verint, but don't be worried, I'm not here to sell anything. It just means it's given me a perspective where I've spoken to many customers over the course of a decade, both in this region, but globally as well. And I'm here to share my experiences and obviously here to learn other experiences as well that I can share at some point in the future. So that's what I've been doing for the past 10 years, is basically sales for of a portfolio where the products are designed to help customer experience. So that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome, and we're not worried, Farouk, at all, because we have no question of the value you're going to add to the panel. And can I just say thank you to you and Darren for sponsoring the event today as well. It's really appreciated. All of our headline sponsors working with TRB, and you're this one for this panel, so thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it.
You're most welcome.
Andrew, it's been a while since I've seen you in person, sir, so hello virtually.
Hello there, Darren, and everyone else on the webinar. I'm Andrew Mann. I've spent the last almost 2 decades working in data-driven marketing leadership roles in some of the UK's best-known retailers. So I spent 5 years at Tesco running Clubcard, 4 years at Sainsbury's doing insight and loyalty. I was the customer director at Asda, customer director at the Co-op, and worked for 18 months at M&S with Sparks. And about a year and a half ago, I decided I was going to set up my own business called North Bailey as a market. It's a great time to do it in the middle of a global pandemic, but it's working really well. And I'm using my experience and my network to help North Bailey clients. And I'm here just to talk about my experience.
Excellent. Well, it's great to have someone of such experience on the panel, and welcome, sir, indeed. Thank you very much. Desi, we've worked together before as well. Welcome back, sir. How are you doing? Who are you?
Really well. Good to see you. Good to be back, and great to be able to rub shoulders with the esteemed panelists, and also to be able to share information with everyone else in attendance. So glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome, and thank you for coming back again at such short notice as well. You may have noticed, if you'd already seen this session trialed, dear audience, that there have been a couple of panelist changes. these things happen, and we're very grateful for those people that stepped in last minute to give us this mega lineup that we're now sat with, and looking forward to talking to. Please do get involved out there. We'd love to hear questions from you as well. So wherever you are working, whether it's on a laptop or a phone, you'll see a Q&A button somewhere on your screen, top or bottom. Use that Q&A button, please. Direct questions to a specific panelist if you wish, or you may have a more general question. My job as the moderator is to make sure that all questions are answered, and I make that pledge to you right now. If you ask a question, we'll get it answered for you. That's it. I'm going to try and talk a bit less now and hand over to this team of experts that I've got working with me. And Anouk, I am going to kick off with you, if I may. How are you feeling about kicking off the show? All good? Ready to go?
Yeah, fine. Go for it. What do you want to ask?
So, big question coming up. Is 2021 the year to close the data gap? What does that question even mean, maybe? What's your thoughts?
Oh, okay. Well, I think yes, in short. In long, it's mainly because, of course, we're in COVID, and it's basically a very interesting market at the moment, very different than anything we've ever seen before. And for data, it's a massive opportunity because this is our once in a lifetime moment, probably, to really reimagine the customer environment. Now, if you look at the data gap, brands today face so many challenges, mainly through engagement channels. They have tons and tons of diverse customer journeys coming their way, millions of consumer interactions, and they're all handled by the same team, right? So that creates the engagement capacity gap, where we're talking about the data gap, because you only have so many people in your team, and with the increase in online users, you cannot adhere to all of the stuff that they want you to do. That's what that gap means. So a reason why 2021 is good is because of us really having that chance to reimagine the customer environment. We can look at different resources a little bit different and hopefully meet customer demand and the exploding volume of customer interactions by optimizing our communication channels. So I think that's something where all our existing tools and approaches that we used before COVID maybe would not work in today's situation. So as we innovate, 2021 is the year to switch.
So do you think COVID has directly affected the way that the companies, have had to take a strategy to deal with it?
For sure. Like in the past, you may have addressed the engagement capacity gap by chucking more people at it, increasing your resource. Okay, we have a lot of customer calls, let's hire a second customer success manager, right? And then you sort of hope for the best and that you kind of don't reach capacity again. Now, that's a very expensive solution because hiring is very expensive. And also you can't scale it. You can't, at some point, your customer service team is big enough, you can't have 100. Nobody can afford that, right? So, and it also doesn't give you any special in-house skills to manage specific things cleverly. You're basically just reacting, right? To move forward, in COVID, we've seen people adapt on new technologies, mainly eliminating constraints on organizations in relation to data silos, where we're trying to differentiate experiences a bit more at scale. And we're trying to be more consistent about our cross-channel experiences because a lot more people are online now than they ever were before. So improving that engagement and basically maybe using a new workforce of both humans and bots, very, very interesting.
Got it, indeed. It certainly seems to have sharpened people's focus, and the ones that haven't been able to sharpen are the one that's being left behind as well. But no doubt we'll talk some more on that. Farouk, I'm going to come to you if I may. Self-service tools. We are seeing them, I guess, more than we have done before. How can self-service tools help companies adapt to human behavior in the buying cycle?
Yeah, this is something I could take the whole hour speaking about, to be honest. So I'll try and condense what I want to say. And to condense it, I'm going to give you an example of something that I've been through, because it's something that I'm seeing quite often that people actually go through in a buying cycle. When you're buying a product these days, more often than not, it is actually online that you're buying. And if you think back to a couple of years ago, you might go to certain websites which have got a rating provided by users, and you would buy something which is highly rated by users. Now, people are actually clocking on that those ratings are not really accurate anymore, because some of the companies that actually sell products give products away for free to users for a 5-star rating. So it's very difficult to actually understand whether the product that you're buying is an actual 5-star product or not. So this is a journey that I actually went through. I was looking for a spin bike, and you could probably see it in the background over there right now. But when I was looking for a spin bike, it was actually before COVID, and I saw the bike that I wanted, and I was about 50 to 60% sure that I wanted to actually buy the product itself, but I wasn't 100% sure, so I didn't buy it. Then the pandemic happened, and the price of the bike actually trebled on the online stores. Exactly, it trebled. And I still wasn't 100% sure if it was the right bike for me or not, because I searched on the internet, I went to the company's website, and all the websites were telling me is this bike is great, this bike does everything. But what I really wanted was validation from another human being. Now, I wasn't in a capacity to go out and start speaking to other human beings, especially during the pandemic, about whether this bike is right for me or not. So what I did was I found an online forum for cyclists, basically. And I went on this online forum and I started having conversations with complete strangers. And this complete stranger, who I have no idea who this person is, actually told me, that's not the spin bike you want. This is the one that you want. And I ended up buying that particular bike. Now, if the other manufacturer had their own self-service strategy where I could get the answers that I was looking for, or get responses for maybe even other human beings on their actual domain, I would have bought that straight away. But I was delaying because I wanted validation from a human. So there's only so much self-service strategy can do, surfacing online knowledge articles, having a chatbot which answers your questions. But it does come to a stage where you do still need that human validation. And if you've got a self-service strategy, that's one of the key things that you need to have. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that's the kind of experience that I'm going through and other people that I see going through as well.
How's the spin bike worked out for you?
Fantastic. It's brilliant. I absolutely love it. I was thinking maybe I should go for a Peloton, but when I went on this actual forum, I was told I'm better off as a beginner going for something like this. And then if I really want to spend several thousand and then several hundred a year subscription after that, then go for that. But to be honest, this has worked out perfectly for me.
And it's interesting, isn't it, how that experience then diverted your buying decision completely.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're seeing today. People want to still get advice. If there's no longer trust in reviews, then they're going to want to look for some kind of feedback from somewhere. Things are opening up now, so maybe human feedback would still be important, but I don't actually personally know someone who's bought a spin bike. So I would still need to find human validation online, right? So yeah, there we go.
Thank you, sir. That's a great example. And I'm glad that the bike is working out well for you. I'll come back to you again shortly as well. Andrew, I'm going to come to you if I may, sir. Everyone knows what to do, right? I think everyone wants to get things right. So why don't retailers get things right? What are the most difficult barriers to overcome for retailers?
I think you're right. Everybody, the example that Farouk has just talked about, everyone would sit there and nod and say, yeah, that's the right thing to do. But not everybody's doing it. And I think one of the biggest reasons is that ultimately, and I've worked in all the different retailers I've worked in, it's almost been exactly the same, is basically the board aren't really buying it yet. It's as simple as that. I think the board aren't fully aligned behind doing it properly. They agree a form of words, and I call those sort of form of words strategic ambiguity. Yeah, that agrees they're going to do this, but everybody has a slightly different way of thinking about this. So the finance director is going, yeah, we should do customer experience because it's going to save us a load of money. Yeah. Or the customer marketing director is going, yeah, we want to improve the experience because the net promoter score will go up. And everybody has a slightly different view about it. And the only way that those organizations that really cut through is where everybody is aligned around a very simple goal that's very clear, very simple, unambiguous, and focused around, smart, if you want to call it, in those both perspectives. So what we saw during COVID, particularly in grocery or in a lot of other stores, was our shops are all closed. We've got a website that's doing sales, but it's not doing it very well. How do we scale it up quickly, and how do we make it work? So actually very, very clear focus, and everybody in the business can align around it. And then the businesses moved a complete step change around what they were doing. So Tesco, within 5 months, almost doubled their capacity of grocery home shopping in 4 or 5 months. They did, twice as many grocery home shopping deliveries with a better experience around what they were doing, because everybody in the business was aligned around it. The IT director knew exactly what he had to do. The commercial director knew exactly what he had to do. Ocado, for example, withdrew bottled water from taking deliveries during the first 6 months of the pandemic, because bottled water is very heavy, and it reduces the capacity. So you could get almost 20% more deliveries into the shops if you did it in that respect. But it all came down to the fact of everybody, very clear purpose, identified a goal, you were very clear what the strategy was, and everybody aligned around it. And that's, I think, there's almost, for me, there's a lot of learnings that came in the last 18 months that if smart organizations will start codifying that, simplifying of decision trees, you didn't have 5 people making a decision, you had 1 person or 2 people, yeah? You delegated down, lots of things that organizations did, but the big thing is fewer things, better. I mean, I was talking to a lot of marketing directors during the COVID crisis, and they were saying, we used to have 100 priorities. We used to have 100 top priorities, yeah? Now we've got 5. Everyone's really clear what they're doing. So I think the big thing is, if you want to improve your customer experience, you've got to align the board first. If you don't do that, you won't get anything else done. You'll just be, paddling upstream with a very strong tide. So
yeah, I think the supermarkets it's a great example you've given. And funny enough, I mentioned them in the earlier webinar we did this morning, because they were slammed with this unexpected tidal wave at the beginning of the pandemic. Even before lockdown, we had that awful few weeks of stores being stripped, and they just pivoted and were agile, and they kept us fed, and then they've just honed their model. The major grocers have really been a masterclass in retail over the last 18 months, I think, and kind of deserve our thanks, not just for the people that have put up with so much on the front lines as well. So a really good example, I think.
I think they have. I mean,
I didn't know the bottled water story from Ocado. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's great.
It makes so much sense as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And also something as simple as what Sainsbury's were able to do, because they had Nectar cards, and they went on your Nectar card, they asked what your age was. They were very quickly able to identify those people that were vulnerable and offer them slots for home delivery.
Incredible.
But if you get your data right, you can use it in a way that's useful. And I think this is where you've got to be really clear on what's the outcome you're trying to deliver, and then you can go and find the data you want to deliver against it. So
that's again, didn't know that one. So two facts I'm learning from you today. Thank you for that, sir. Thank you. I'll come back to you shortly. Desi, Victorinox, I understand you and the guys are looking to make some big changes regarding tech and increasing customer engagement. What's going on there?
Great question. Well, for us right now, one of the things that I identified when we joined, myself and a team of guys there, esteemed fellow colleagues of mine, we identified that the technical architecture that underpinned the digital experience for our customers, that seriously limited in a massive way what we were able to provide for our customers by means of an experience, not just on the digital storefront, the website, but that affected really the holistic view of the customer's journey. So how a customer would come into contact, what they could do, how they could use things such as vouchers, and whether that would be in store or online, the difficulties that they would have in order to try and transfer certain purchases, what they could do in terms of their PUDO experience as they pick up and drop off, especially if they wanted to exchange a product, and also in general other things as well with regards to just their flexibility within the digital experience of finding products, getting to product, evaluating product, making a decision, emotionally investing to make a decision, just like Farouk's example. So once we understood that, we then began an investigation. And for us, we saw that we were on a monolithic architecture. Now, I'm not some people in the audience or some people on the panel may know what that is, but a monolithic architecture means that everything that a customer experiences and what they don't see, the back end and front end services, they're all strongly connected together. And because they're strongly connected, if I wanted to make a change on my website that involved data and how I displayed that and what I inquired from the back end, I'd have to change the back end as well, because they're linked as in strongly. We need to move to a different architecture. And so, as I said, that really placed a lot of constraints on us. So we had to really start thinking about how we make the customer the central point of our decision making. And whilst the Victorinox as a brand, they're very famous, they have a lot of great values about them. They're very strong on sustainability and so forth. But how do we make sure that we enhance what's in it for the customer as they get involved in how they use the products? I mean, do the customers even know that 99% of the Swiss Army knives are sustainable? They are almost 100% recyclable materials that they're made from, but they're extremely strong and very famous. Customers don't really know that. But again, at the same time, it's not just about putting that content on the site. It's how you can make sure that customers remember and those things resonate as part of their experience in a way in which is unobtrusive. So our system limited us in terms of what we could do. So that's why we ended up having to really think about what we could do moving forward, how we can change our architecture and migrate. So we started a digital business transformation project. And I know that's a really coiny word or phrase, as it were, but we really have. And so we've had to do a review of everything. So we're talking about, you may say, your EPIM system, your backend data layer, your search and merge tools, and all the other different things, your storefront, and all the various other different third-party tools. So all of those things really had to come into play. So my experience in senior management, even though I focused within the UX industry, but just because of my career path, I've been able to be exposed to a lot more than just user experience, but helping to set up systems, being part of previous digital business transformation projects that have been successful, which has been a privilege. So our goal here is to try and get a 360-degree view of the customer first. Or you could say in waterfall, you could say. So we've started that already. And as we do that, that enables us to have a really clear focus on what kinds of technology we choose and future-proof. And of course, that will be of best of breed to make sure that our customers have the best experience and are satisfied as a result. So we're really trying to think of the mid and long game instead of the short game of let's not invest yet because we can still get some more money. And that is what a lot of typical companies I've experienced in the past have decided to try and go down the route of. And that's a bit unfortunate, because then that means that if they don't pay now, they'll certainly pay later. But we want to make sure that we don't have that kind of you could say, decision to make.
It's a really interesting kind of way to summarize it. If you don't pay now, you are definitely going to pay later as well, right? So thank you for that, sir. I'll come back to you again shortly as well. Great first round of questions to our panel. Do remember, audience, by the way, thanks for staying with us. Our audience number is holding very nicely. Thank you, panel. Good work. You can get involved as well. So use the Q&A button on your screens. And I promise your question will be asked to the person you wish it to be asked to. I'm going to come back to you, Anouk. We love a bit of jargon when we talk about digital and data and so on. And one that gets thrown out there is EDM, engagement data management. What is that, and how can we use it to unlock insights?
So engagement data really is what you use to, exactly in the examples of Andrew and Desi, to rewire your organization, especially in uncertain futures like COVID. And the data management is basically the way of how you capture everything you know about your customers, their journeys, and transform it in a way that it's comprehensible for both the board on strategic level, but also for people that are in the customer experience loop, such as your sales agents or your reps, your people picking up the phones to customers, right? Now, EDM is thrown around a lot now because we have quite a modern workforce nowadays where we're using bots and we're using a younger, more digital savvy workforce in terms of humans. And they require more modern tools. They have more work flexibility, especially with COVID, right? We're all working from home. So people working from any location, any channel, any department, basically, if that's the future of how we're going to work, we need to make sure we deliver on the promises we make to our customers to deliver better efficiencies, better experiences, all that sort of thing. And that's where EDM comes in, where you have that single customer 360 view where not just team marketing or team digital has access and knows about it, but you've actually got buy-in from your customer service team, you've got buy-in from the board, everybody knows that this is what we're doing, and you set your KPIs and your targets dependent on that data coming from the EDM. So you make very calculated, beautiful decisions to then move the business forward. So everybody's working on basically one or two big goals across the organization, rather than what we used to have before COVID, and still a lot of organizations do today, where your data is completely siloed. And I mean, I do digital transformation. I've been doing that for the last 10 years for companies. And that is the biggest obstacle, where there is no data hub to show interaction data and customer experience data. And they just literally, they think they know their customers, but they have actually no data to base those assumptions on, right? Now, building a data hub is not a trivial task. It's like engagement data management is a lot of work to set up, and you're probably going to need to get some sophisticated tracking tools to be able to do it. But it does provide a way for organizations of all sizes to really normalize their interaction data into that single view, which means you can scale, right? And if you have open access to that data, you can deliver solutions at scale. So that's where the real growth for companies sits in digital.
And I guess it could just, the setup of that is what sometimes feels overwhelming for businesses, yeah? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, just the sheer where on earth do I start? But it's not that difficult. Yeah, I always say start with customer profiling, but it's a little bit of basic marketing planning, looking at your competition, where's your position in the market, what is your actual leverage that your brand has, what is your brand identity, and how do customers perceive it?
I think one of the biggest challenges organizations find is when they're looking at creating, looking at how they manage their data. People make the mistake of saying to them, look, you've got to get all this data together. You've got to get it into an ED, enterprise data warehouse. It's going to cost you loads of money. And everybody on the board just sees cost. And I think one of the most important things one of the things we did at M&S was we started with outcomes. So we started with outcomes and actually where there's going to be savings around those outcomes or incremental sales within those outcomes. So you get very clearly that says, if you do this, then you'll be able to improve the outcome of this area here and that area there. And actually, that's a really good way of getting people to buy into a change. And once you start small and you scale very quickly and you have wins in terms of where you want to deliver it, because quite honestly, people don't always believe you. And I know that I've sat there and had led teams, and they come to you with a proposal and they tell you it's going to cost this much and you're going to get these sales, and you look at it and go, there's no way that's going to happen. Yeah. So actually, and I was talking to Mike Coop, who's the CEO at Sainsbury's, and he said, if I added up all the like-for-like sales growth I've been promised, I'd have a business running at 20% like-for-like, not 2, So you've got to find a way of saying, if I do this, so we found a way of saying, basically we can, identify somebody who's bought something, so you don't serve an ad to them on Facebook. If you've just bought a pair of socks at M&S, don't serve me an ad that says you're going to go into M&S. And that saved 20% of our digital marketing budget, which was a £50 million budget. All of a sudden, people start seeing you and going, right, that's the way forward. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's all right. It's a good interaction. And I think Desi, you wanted to add on to this subject as well, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a great question and a great answer by Nuke as well. And one of the things that I've seen is that we've got layers to the kind of data that you can collect, especially in those kinds of systems. And so you're looking at generalized data, you could say market level data to a degree, but then you can get a bit further down that funnel where you can start to look at slightly more personalized data you're collecting from your customer as they interact with your systems, therefore giving data. And they're going through that process of what's in it for me. So if they understand that there is something in it for them, they will happily trade their data for the value of what they're getting in return, whether that be a product or a service. The other level to that, and this is where I've seen in my experience over the last 12 years within UX, and I'd say about 8 within management, senior management, is that where we see that disconnect, and this is probably to Andrew's point as well somewhat, is where ones within businesses that are decision makers may feel that that's enough, when actually it's not. It's understanding the behavior of those customer segments or the data that you have. That is what helps to create a more cyclical connection between every data you have and the various different data sources you have. And if you're able to connect them up into one system or one platform, which gives you a much better cyclical view, because the behavior, for example, in the last 18 months, as I mentioned earlier, is really what has revealed a massive change. A lot of companies, especially their online merchants, have said, well, this is great. We're seeing a massive growth in sales. Let's keep this going. It's because of, well, actually, you don't really know what it's because of, because you haven't got the data to actually prove or back up or validate your comments. And so, so some of that has led to false positives for some organizations or professionals that I know in those organizations. So it really is important to look at, you know, the various different layers of kinds of data that you get, especially in those systems, and make sure that you have a more cyclical view.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the tail end on that as well. I mean, great interactions. Thank you from Anouk, Andrew, and Desi. Always feel free to throw in additional commentary as other speakers talk. It's very welcomed. Farouk, I'm going to come back to you on this self-service subject that we were talking about before. Yeah. And organizations have kind of had a go at AI and trying to blend it with sort of a self-service approach. Some a bit clunkily and clumsily, and some more effectively. What's preventing organizations from blending AI and self-service?
Yeah, so well, you said it yourself there. There's some that's been quite well, but I'd say majority have been quite clunky. I'd probably say at least 80% of the AI, and when I'm talking about AI, I'm talking about, you know, conversational AI kind of solutions, are clunky. And the reason behind that is, if you look around the market today, the waters are quite muddied as to what exactly is AI. You know, if you just Google right now for a solution that does conversational AI, for example, it's probably going to come back with 200 to 300 results, or 200 to 300 different actually companies that offer that. But if you delve a little bit deeper into it, the majority of the companies aren't exactly what I would consider AI anyway. You know, for example, if you go to a particular website and you've got a bot and it's a workflow, that's not AI, but they call it AI. If you go to another bot and it allows you to maybe type, but it just brings back search results, again, it's not an AI. It is just a glorified search engine. So one of the main reasons that's actually preventing companies from using AI, in my opinion, is they've seen other companies using some sort of what is called AI, and they've thought, that's not too great. I don't want that same for me. But what they're not realizing is that, as I've mentioned already, the waters are muddied. That is not true AI. The true AI solutions, which are the lower percentage ones, are really, really fantastic solutions. And if you actually take a look at some of these AI solutions and how well they work, they actually, you know, understand human language and able to respond. And that's one of the reasons is people have seen other companies doing it poorly, and that's why, and they don't want to try it themselves. Now, one of the ways that people do it quite poorly, and I think I'm going to answer one of your bullet points of what this session was about, is about the dumb bots. You know, these are not AI. So search results and workflows, they're dumb bots. These bots are fine if you just want some simple FAQs answered, and that is it. If you're actually replacing a channel, then that is an awful solution to do. And there's quite a few big organizations that have actually replaced a human chat channel with a bot. In fact, I was actually conversing with one yesterday. It's actually one of the largest payment systems and solutions in the world. I'm sure you can guess who that is. But I had an issue with a payment that I made or an item that I did not receive. And when I tried to have a conversation with the bot, I just said, chat with human. That's what I typed out. And the response it gave back was, we can email this thread to a human. Is that what you want? Someone will get back to you in a few hours.
Wow.
I was like, no, I want to speak to an actual human. So I said, no, I want to speak to a human. And it just took me back to the beginning of the workflow. And it's such an awful experience. I can understand that people that go through that awful experience think, I don't want to have this experience for myself. Then on the other hand, you've also got some people that come in, and I think I'm going to go a little bit back to Andrew's points. You know, there's a lot of chefs in the kitchen, I'm going to call it, that get involved when you're talking about big solutions such as AI solutions. And at least one of these chefs have got a really good relationship with one of the major software providers in the world, and every software provider in the world is now doing AI, and those are not great AI solutions, and they end up spending millions on a solution which doesn't end up working well, and they don't want to spend millions on one solution and admit they made a mistake and try a proper AI solution. And I'll give you a quick example of a good AI solution, which you don't see much of, but they are there if you look out for them. So if I've got an issue with my product or my services, if I actually speak to the AI solution, it can understand who I am, it can understand the products that I've purchased, and it can connect to all the knowledge areas and be able to give me the response that I'm looking for. Now, the reason that is a good solution is it understands my intent and it gives me my response straight away. Now, when you're building a good solution, it's quite important to, again, take into consideration what the pandemic has actually done. And something I was saying before the pandemic came in is that we're heading to what I like to call the age of convenience. And what the age of convenience is, people want responses now. They want responses fast. They want solutions now and fast. You know, everyone is a doctor or a mechanic thanks to Google, but they want solutions to their product issues or any queries that they want quick and fast. If they come to a dumb bot which doesn't give those solutions, doesn't give those answers, then that's a poor customer experience. Whereas if they come to an AI solution and they get the answers that they want, then that's a good customer experience. And that's what people are actually looking for right now. And that age of experience doesn't apply to just getting the help that customers want. It's actually in the buying cycle as well. You know, people would pay a lot more to get the product that they want tomorrow, right? And if it's a company that provides good customer experience, they'll pay more to get that good customer experience. So that's, in a nutshell, you know, why people are reluctant to actually spend or invest more in AI. It's loads of factors involved, but essentially it is the waters that have been muddied, and other people have already got relationships or they've already failed in a solution which wasn't right for them to begin with.
Yeah, it's two cases of misunderstanding, I think, isn't it? Because businesses don't really get it, and then consumers have fear of it as well. So I had a really awful experience with, I'll just name it, Vodafone Chatbot, sue me. It was horrific. I mean, I lost an hour of my life and I didn't achieve the end result I wanted either. So it just kind of put me off. And now I don't think I've ever used a chatbot since. So it's
exactly.
that kind of
and that's the problem.
From a bad experience.
Yeah, once you've got one bad experience, then you assume every other bot is going to give you a bad experience. And that's why people are a little bit reluctant to go via the bot route. But the other thing is, you know, you had that bad experience. You were on there for an hour. This should always be an option to escalate to a human, because a bot should be there to deflect the easy cases. But anything more complex, if it cannot answer it, you still need to have your humans involved. You cannot take the humans out of this element when your customers are trying to get the support that they need, because there's going to be complex queries. And ideally, for the best customer experience, your agents are going to be dealing with those complex queries. And you know, I hear quite often, if I implement your bot and I reduce the support cases coming in by 80% or whatever you can go up to, and I've seen some examples of about 90%, then my contact center, I'm going to need to start getting rid of staff. That's not the case at all. You know, your contact center is actually going to be working on new queries coming in all the time rather than repetitive queries. And that is actually going to give better job satisfaction. It's going to end up to you having better agents within the contact center as well.
Yeah, in that example, I just went to the Vodafone store 10 minutes away. This is just before the pandemic, actually. And funnily enough, when I was telling the team about it, they'd had loads of people coming in saying, your chatbot's rubbish. So they were like, please just give us a break from the chatbot feedback. Andrew, I think you want to come in here.
Yeah, I think, look, the big challenge here is how do you allocate, if you're sitting there as a board member, you're thinking, how do I allocate my resource, which is financial and people? And technology is great, but you've got to apply it in a way that delivers what you need to get to. And I think we sort of think about it think of it as in a matrix, which is, look, transactional versus complex and emotional, right? Bots will work very well, mostly for transactional stuff. What time are you open? What are the things you need to do? When's my delivery arriving? Those sorts of things. And then the complex ones, you've got to think. But then the other thing is, you need to think about the value of the customer. Because, and one of the things that we built at Marks and Spencer's, we built a customer lifetime value model. So we were really clear who our most valuable customers were. And actually, in great George Orwell sort of speak, every customer's equal, but some are more equal than others, is the way you need to think about it. So you've got to think about it and say, right, if you've got a customer that has either high lifetime value or high potential lifetime value, you should be dealing with them in a sort of better basis. Now, and that's how you allocate resource. You've got to think of it as, complex and simple, but then also customer lifetime value.
Who's doing it well then? So you've mentioned a couple of previous retailers' experiences, but have you got a view on someone that's doing it well right now?
I've got a view of someone who's doing it well, and they're not Verint, unfortunately. I don't know if you've used the Just Eat chat. You won't even realize, most people don't even realize they're actually speaking to a bot. It feels like they're actually speaking to a human, but it is an actual bot. I could tell you, I could roll off a whole list of people who are doing it terribly bad, but let's not go there.
I don't really have a Just Eats or Uber Eats or Deliveroo on my phone at all. No, I don't know what you're talking about. But
no, of course not.
I do use all three of those aforementioned businesses, but I've never used their AI or their bots. So
I think Amazon do it well.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but Amazon are very clearly focused on high value customers and less. They deliver value for high value customers. And once you're on Prime, you're a high value customer. And the service, if you ever tried to return anything as a Prime customer, you can get through to somebody very quickly and get there's no, I've got a family, and so we have, during the pandemic, we had Prime stuff arriving almost daily. And so therefore, they just, no problem, we'll sort it out, sort of thing. So I think
oh, sorry, go on.
Go on, Anu.
There is a sharp side to that, though, because it may be a great customer experience. It's a horrible business customer experience, because all those sellers, even if there would be a direct conversation instead of the Amazon bot, it says, yeah, the return is fine. Here you go. It's fine. They immediately return everything to the sellers. They lose out on masses of money. Like we sell on Amazon, and the times that we get through to customers and actually have a direct, quick conversation, we can usually just send them a replacement part or a little cable that they're missing, instead of a full product coming back as a return being written off by Amazon. Now we can't resell it. And they then charge you for the return to your warehouse, by the way, as well. So the amount of margin you lose, maybe like 30, even up to 40% with the Amazon returns for businesses. So great customer experience for end users, horrendous corporate experience for the people who actually pay your advertising fees.
And I think that's a really fair point. And I don't know whether, have you, do any of you listened to Bezos's letters to shareholders? Have you ever read them? He's written a letter to shareholders since 1997. So he's written 24, and he's just written his last one. And they're actually a brilliant masterclass in business. It's just worth reading each of them. And I've actually done a summary on my website, which is a little quick plug if you ever want to look at them. But the last one he wrote was basically saying, you have to manage all of your stakeholders in your business. And Amazon does it well for some of them. So it does it really well for customers. he just had the issue with the colleagues and the unionization in Arizona, I think. And he said, we're trying to do it for our colleagues. We pay them a lot of money and they vote, and actually we do it for the environment, and we need to do it for all of our stakeholders. Because if you keep that relationship with all the stakeholders right, then you'll get it fixed. So I think there's a sort of case of, look, his primary focus was on getting it right for customers, and he wasn't getting it right for the other people. But there's a way of fixing that. You just got to keep working through it. So you're right.
Yeah, it's the same with the giants like Facebook. They're all about end user experience. But if you try and advertise, if your accounts get blocked or an ad gets revoked or any sort of ad spend needs to be paid out, or the tiniest things like your credit card doesn't get accepted because it doesn't accept it because it's not an American card, which used to happen a few years ago with UK cards when the new visas came out. And there's just no one you can speak to. There's no forum, there's no contact, there's not even a chatbot, And I think for people, some companies spending thousands and thousands a month on your platform, you are clearly underestimated, like completely missed a complete customer group, right? Now that's an example of Facebook and Amazon, but even smaller companies that say, oh, like Farouk said, I saw cases where 80% of the queries to my customer team, the agents went off because the bot was answering the dumb questions, like where's my order? Your customers should never be asking you where their order is. Why aren't you sending them tracking codes, right? Like that's automation. That's not bots or engagement management. That's just the basics, guys. If you can't even get people to send a tracking code via email, or obviously they get tons of overload on your customer service.
Yeah, who'd have thought you get a DHL delivery nowadays, and who'd have thought you'd be able to see where it is and track where it's coming and watch it coming? That's
right. You should not be getting that question anymore. That question should be fixed by now if you're a good marketer.
Yeah.
Farouk, you had a quick point to say on Amazon as well, yeah?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sorry, Andrew, but I disagree. I think the Amazon bot is terrible. It's great if you want to return things and if you've got a problem, but anything more than that and it just falls over. So that's just my opinion. I think Amazon's customer service before their bot was much better because you could send an email, and I still like sending emails. Right now, you can't send emails anymore. It's either chat to that bot, or if you're lucky, sometimes you get an option to speak to someone on the phone, someone in India, I believe it is, which for me is a poor experience now. Whereas
the other thing is they never get it wrong.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the best way of fixing it. Yeah. Never get it wrong.
Yeah, but it's different because if you're a smaller business, then it's a lot more trickier to just send it back, just send it back, just send it back. And people have gotten wise. If they buy something from Amazon, they don't like it, they'll just send it back and say I don't like it. And so people are buying and returning. Whereas smaller businesses, that's a lot more trickier to do, right?
Yeah, and that sends a very dangerous customer expectation, doesn't it? Because now everybody's expecting the Amazon experience, but small businesses have absolutely no way of competing to that because they're just not the margins to do so.
Exactly. Yeah.
Desi, I want to come to you. You've got something you want to add on to this as well, and we haven't heard from you for a bit either. So let's hear your voice.
Absolutely, and I think you guys have mentioned some really interesting and good points. But I think what it boils down to is the fact that whether it's in my field, UX design as a solution, especially when it comes to bridging that gap, or even in any other field where we're talking about technology and decision making, there are always trade-offs. And I've seen three major trade-offs: what's good for the business, what's good for the customer, and as Andrew's been saying several times, which has actually been really good reminders, how much does it cost? Resources. So if an organization focuses on one more than the other, there's always going to be a trade-off. And so, and that's going to be the hard thing for companies to be able to manage, and it's how they navigate that, and then also what integral systems they have in place and processes that they have that can support their want and need to improve. Because companies can say, we've got to get better, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. But if they haven't got the systems in place or the processes in place or even the resources in place as in people, then they're unable to make real strides.
Desi, one of the headlines of this webinar was solutions to bridge the engagement capacity gap. It's a big sentence, but how is UX a deliverable solution for that?
That's a really good question, actually. I believe it is, because most companies, unfortunately, or many companies, not all, because some have very good maturity levels and some are actually maturing from a UX perspective. So they don't really know how to utilize UX fully. And so, for example, they may have a digital storefront or even a physical storefront, and they have a product, so it should just sell. That's it, right? We've created the product, it should just sell. Or some will invent a product and then think about who they need to sell it to in order to make money. Instead of the other way around, what is the need in the market? Can I create something that fulfills that need? I mean, I had a conversation, Darren, with a very smart person in senior management in a different business to mine. And they didn't think that behavior and emotion really played a part in customers making a decision as to whether they wanted to buy their products or invest in their brand or advocate for them. So that notion still exists. I mean, I would challenge anyone who has a car that they really like, tell me if you didn't name it. I think that tells you enough as it is. And that's the thing, most people name their cars. So there is some emotional attachment to things we buy that are inanimate. So we know this. Now, one more example is that UX methodologies can reveal a lot, especially when it comes to content, for example. Now, content isn't something that you would directly affiliate UX with, but it can have a very, you could say, profound effect when we discover and understand what customers are looking for in terms of information to create affirmation to buy, such as what Farouk was talking about earlier. So that could be what the balance should be, depending on where the customer is in their journey. So for a business at a really high level, as a basic example, you've got company-centric content or goals, or customer-centric content or goals. And without talking about the detail of what they are, but if anyone wants to know, please post a question in the chat and I'll be happy to answer that afterwards if there's time. But the whole point of making, taking great care and making sure that we provide good customer engagement is that we want to increase retention, repeat purchases, but data is the key to help us in doing that, understanding what the customer is doing, why they're doing it, what they're thinking, where the pinch points are, how are they having a great experience? Because you can have a great first half of an experience of technology, but UX helps you to understand those basic parts that Anouk talked about, making sure that the basic information is being communicated to the customer in a way in which they understand, making them want to come back, making sure that the company grows as a result.
I think your point made me laugh about people naming their vehicles. I haven't owned a car for years. Living in Westminster, it's impossible to have a car and kind of pointless, but I do have a Piaggio called Paolo. Does that count?
That does count.
Thank you for that. Guys, we are 8 minutes to finish. So I'm going to start wrapping up across each of you, if I may. So your final questions are coming up. Anouk, final question for you, if I may. Differentiated, sorry, say it properly, customer experiences. How do you scale them?
Well, scaling sounds really daunting, but if you use automation and machine learning as your essentials to get insights and guidance to your agents, your support agents, you can start to blend your human experience with automation, and your agents can work in a more varied way, facilitating very distinct and enhanced customer experiences, because you're using your data to power human interactions, right? Now that's absolutely key to scaling, because there's enormous requirements from customers that are bringing straight to the door of your business. And the only thing that really resonates with consumers, if you want to really differentiate yourself from your competition, is a strong brand identity, right? That's what lasts long term. Everybody knows the Coca-Cola jingle, right? So a business must really execute that strategic shift that Andrew and Desi were talking about, to really move towards the digital transformation, where you deliver and encourage continuous frictionless engagement for any channel. So you unsilo your organization and you use the data and process to support it. That is how you scale. So in short, just to round up, if you can connect your workforce, your data, your experiences across your enterprise board level as well, and you can blend that human experience with automation and then manage your engagement data, then you will truly understand your customer, your employees, your brand identity, your product positioning, and thus build this beautiful customer experience across all touch points on a scalable level.
Thank you so much for that very compelling answer, and as always for your contribution to the TRB panel today. Much appreciated. Farouk, I'm going to come to you if I may. We've talked a lot about that kind of self-service tool, but technology in general, how can retailers use that to revive sales in this really challenged market?
Right, so it's really going back to my earlier example of when I bought the spin bike. But it's not just about new sales, it's about keeping not new customers, it's about existing customers as well. You know, if you start that relationship with the customers before they buy a product, and you carry on that relationship with your customers after they've bought a product, then the chances are they're going to come back to you, because loyalty has gone down. You know, people will go on shopping comparison websites and they'll buy the cheapest product. If they haven't got loyalty to someone like Amazon, you know, they'll go and find the cheapest product and they'll buy the cheapest product. Now, if they've come to you as a retailer and they bought something from you as a retailer, and you carry on that conversation with them, then they've got that relationship with you that they're going to feel trusted to buy from you again, rather than go to another retailer, even if your prices are slightly higher than the other. It's all about building trust, building relationships.
Thank you, sir. And thank you again for the compelling content you've added to the panel today, and also for, as I mentioned earlier, your sponsorship as well.
Thanks for having me.
Andrew, share a gem with us. So, you know, retailers are dealing with this acceleration of digital. Who's doing it well, and who still needs to do more?
I think I talked a bit earlier, a lot of the retailers who've got physical stores or didn't have physical stores have really improved their digital capability in terms of being able to deliver online and deliver to your homes. I think the battleground for the next 18 months, that there's probably less marginal gains in terms of digital delivery. The battleground is going to be around how you, as physical stores open up, it's going to be, the battleground is how do you take digital into the physical store to improve the experience in the store? So certain retailers have done a great job to begin with in terms of in grocery. So Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda, all of them have produced the ability to scan and shop as you go, which was a revelation within the shopping during the pandemic. But actually, what they're doing, I think, particularly Sainsbury's, are in a really good position where they can accelerate that and improve the experience even further, so that it makes it easier to shop in store and connect it to your previous data in terms of those sort of risks. So I think Sainsbury's are in a good place in that respect. I think around the customer experience, I think the other area is around colleague experience. So actually engaging colleagues in a way where you can't physically put them in a training room is going to be really important moving forward. So actually, retailers that are thinking about the customer experience and the colleague experience together and using digital capability are the ones that are doing that. So people like B&Q and Kingfisher are doing a really good job in that respect. I think Sainsbury's in grocery are doing a good job in that respect. Funnily enough, Pets at Home are doing a really good job of connecting the two together. And I think they've just announced massive sales growth in terms of, there's been an 8% growth in pooches, Darren, your favorite sort of area in terms of those areas. But
I spend a fortune at Pets at Home.
I know, and they're great. I mean, I know the CEO there is just brilliant. He's an ex-Asda guy, and he's absolutely brilliant. But I think the thing about it is, a lot of the time, retailers have actually got to be honest, okay, and suppliers to retailers have got to be really. I'll finish off because I know you want to have it. You've only got a minute left, Darren. So I'll finish there.
Thank you, sir. Indeed, thanks for having you with us as well today, and best of luck to you and the guys at North Bailey as well.
Thank you.
Desi, you've got a minute to wrap this up. I think a good way to wrap it up for us would be you spoke about some of the things that you're doing at Victorinox and the changes you're making. How will you know when you've arrived? How will you know when you've done job done, or will you never be job done?
Wow, that's a really, really good question. And you know, one of the things that we learn in design is that the job is never finished. So, and that is true not just for design, it's also true for solutions we provide when it comes to customer engagement, because UX is really about the customer. So it's how we engage with them. How do we understand what they feel, what they think, the decisions they make, and why they make them, right? So as we get a more complete view of that, it will never be completely 360. We know that, but we want to get as close as we can. And every time we get to a certain point, you're going to realize so much time has passed. We now have to take a new snapshot of what we did the first time round. So it's about trying to find a way in which we can find a more efficient, smoother way in order to make sure that we can get around that circle as best we can and then connect that data for us. When will we know we're finished? I think we'll know when we're finished when we feel that we're able to do things such as react better to our customers. Again, being on a monolithic technical architecture that underpins a lot of our commerce for our business, that has limited us, and it limits many organizations today. That basically means that you're unable to have the freedom of distributing content or information to any type of device. You're fixed. And if you want to do it somewhere else, you've got to do it again. And if you want to do it somewhere, you've got to do it again. So you've got 3 pillars you have to manage. And that's a lot of money, a lot of resource, a lot of time, whether you service that out or whether you build a massive in-house team. So, you know, in order for us to be able to try and maximize on that and maximize and be more agile, that's why I mentioned we're going headless, because that means that with headless technology, you don't have an endpoint. It's disconnected, it's decoupled. That means that we can do things such as, you know, create, you know, really good kiosks in our stores, and our stores are pretty world leading and have won awards, thankfully, pre-pandemic. And we hope to be able to try and continue that tradition as well in terms of creating that experience, you know, in terms of our Victorinox customers all around the world. And so we want to be able to make sure that we can do that, improve upon that. And if we can, and if we can make sure that our decisions to invest in technology or to start projects is based on data and the changes in data, when we get to that point, that's when we become mature enough, in my personal opinion and humble opinion, to be able to say, right, we've kind of made it. Now let's work harder to try and push the envelope.
And then what's next? Beautiful wrap, sir. Thank you so much. We're going to take a break at the TRB. We're going to do a lunch hour. I'm going to walk the dog. The next session is customer loyalty, funnily enough, actually. So how to improve retention, personalization, digital experiences, and so on. That's coming up at 1 o'clock. All that's left for me to say is a massive thank you to Andrew and Anouk and Desi and Farouk again for your sponsorship as well at Verint. You've been a megastar panel. The audience stayed with us. They didn't ask any questions, but they kept watching. So that's a really important measurement. You've been stars. Go have some lunch and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, guys, and see you all soon. Bye-bye.